1 million years ago, the oldest civilization in the universe made a discovery so horrifying that they executed their own scientists. Not because the scientists had failed, but because they had learned the truth. That truth was never written into history. Every record was burned, every laboratory was destroyed, and every witness vanished. Yet before the last archive was erased, one sentence survived. It wasn't a warning, and it wasn't a prophecy. It was a command: if humanity is ever born, protect their children at all costs. Why? No one knew. Who were humans? No one had ever heard the name. Earth didn't even exist yet, so how could a civilization predict a species that wouldn't appear for another 1,000,000 years? That mystery became the galaxy's greatest secret. Millions of years passed. Empires rose, collapsed, and were forgotten. Stars exploded, new galaxies formed, and entire civilizations disappeared into myth. Eventually, everyone forgot the ancient command, everyone except one organization. The Keepers. Hidden beyond the edge of known space, the Keepers watched a single blue planet, Earth. They never interfered, never contacted humanity, and never revealed themselves. They only observed, waiting, watching, recording, because according to the oldest surviving prophecy, the fate of the universe would one day depend not on human armies, not on human technology, but on a single human child. 300 years later, humanity finally reached the stars. To the rest of the galaxy, they were disappointing, weak, short-lived, emotional, and ridiculously stubborn. Alien politicians laughed whenever humans attended galactic meetings. Military commanders considered them harmless, and scientists dismissed them as primitive. Then something impossible happened. Every advanced civilization began reporting the same strange phenomenon. Whenever a human child entered a city, ancient machines millions of years old suddenly activated. Doors that had never opened, opened. Languages no one could translated themselves. Security systems ignored every species except human children. At first, everyone called it coincidence. Then another child triggered another ancient structure, then another, until the coincidences became impossible to ignore. The oldest artifacts in existence were reacting to children from a species that shouldn't have existed when those artifacts were built. One frightened senator finally asked the question everyone else was avoiding: who built these machines for human children? No one answered, because no answer made sense. Then everything changed. A human passenger ship disappeared, no distress signal, no debris, nothing. At first no one noticed. Ships vanished every day, whether to pirates, accidents, or black holes. It happened, but this ship was different. It wasn't carrying soldiers, and it wasn't carrying diplomats. It carried 112 children. Families searched for months. Governments blamed pirates. The Galactic Union promised an investigation. They lied because deep beneath the Union capital, the High Council already knew exactly where those children were. They had ordered the kidnapping themselves, not for ransom, not for slavery, not for war, but for an experiment based on a question that had haunted the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. Why do the ancient machines only obey human children? If the answer could be forced from them, the galaxy believed it could finally control the greatest mystery in existence. They couldn't have been more wrong, because hidden among those terrified children was an 8-year-old girl named Lena Carter. Quiet, kind, and always carrying an old silver music box her grandmother had given her. The scientists dismissed her immediately as just another frightened child. They never noticed the tiny symbol engraved inside the music box, a symbol that had last been seen 1 million years ago. The laboratory was buried nearly 2 miles beneath the Galactic Union capital. Officially, it didn't exist. No maps showed it, and no government admitted it had ever been built. Only those with the highest security clearance knew its true name, the Vault of Origins. Every child from the missing transport had been brought there, not to prison cells, but to rooms designed to look like bedrooms, filled with toys, books, warm meals, and soft beds. The scientists believed frightened children would reveal their secrets faster if they felt safe. But there was one problem: none of the children knew they had a secret. Every morning, the researchers asked the same questions. What makes you different? Have your parents ever told you a story? Can you open the ancient machines? The answers never changed. I don't know. No, I've never seen one. Weeks passed, and the High Council grew impatient. Billions of credits had been spent on the operation, and still nothing. One council member finally slammed his fist onto the table. Perhaps the prophecy was wrong. Another slowly shook his head. No, the machines are responding. We're simply asking the wrong questions. Meanwhile, 8-year-old Lena Carter sat quietly beside a window. She wasn't crying anymore, and she wasn't angry. She simply watched the stars. Every night she opened the old silver music box her grandmother had given her. Strangely, it had never played music, not once. The scientists had examined it hundreds of times. It contained no batteries, no power source, and no moving mechanism, just an ancient symbol carved beneath the lid. Worthless, or so they believed. One evening, a young alien technician entered Lena's room carrying her dinner. His name was Kale. Unlike the others, he had never wanted to work in the vault. He had children of his own, and every time he looked at the human kids, he saw his family. As he placed the tray on the table, he noticed Lena staring at the stars. "You miss home," she nodded. "My little brother." Kale smiled sadly. "You'll see him again." Lena looked at him. "Will you?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head. "You miss your children too." Kale froze. He had never told anyone he had a family, not here, not anywhere. "How did you know that?" Lena simply smiled. "You always touch the picture in your pocket before you leave." Without thinking, Kale reached into his uniform. Hidden inside was a tiny holographic photograph of his wife and 2 daughters. His hands began to shake. No cameras could have seen it, and no human had ever been close enough to notice. Yet somehow the little girl knew. That night, Kale couldn't sleep. He replayed the conversation over and over, then he remembered something. Years earlier, his grandmother had told him an old legend, a story every child on his world laughed at. She claimed that long before the Galactic Union existed, there was once a species whose children could hear emotions, not thoughts, not words, but emotions. Fear, love, hope, sorrow. No machines, no psychic powers, just hearts listening to other hearts. Kale had dismissed it as a fairy tale. Now he wasn't so sure. The next morning, the High Council ordered a final test. If the children failed, the experiment would end. Permanent termination had already been approved. One by one, the children were led into a massive underground chamber. At its center stood a black doorway nearly 300 feet tall, with no hinges, no controls, and no visible technology. It had remained sealed for exactly 1 million years. The lead scientist stepped forward. "Begin!" Every machine in the chamber roared to life. Energy flooded the ancient structure. Nothing happened. More power. Still nothing. Maximum output. The doorway remained silent. One council member laughed. "So much for the prophecy." Then, without anyone touching it, Lena quietly walked forward. She placed one small hand against the cold black surface. "I know," she whispered. "You're lonely too." For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then a sound echoed through the chamber. Not an explosion, not an alarm, but a single, gentle heartbeat. Boom! Every light in the laboratory went out. The ancient doorway had awakened, and somewhere far beyond the edge of the known galaxy, something else opened its eyes. The entire laboratory froze. Every scientist, every soldier, every member of the High Council stared at the impossible sight before them. The ancient doorway was opening, not because of technology, not because of power, but because of a child who had no idea what she had done. Lena slowly removed her hand from the black surface. Her eyes widened. "I didn't break it," she whispered. "It was already awake." Nobody answered because deep inside, everyone knew she was right. The doorway had not been forced open. It had been waiting for someone who could hear it. Then a voice filled the chamber, not from speakers, not from machines, but from everywhere, a voice older than galaxies. "Finally!" The lights flickered, and the ancient walls began displaying images, not words, but memories of a civilization no living creature had ever seen. 1 million years ago, before the Galactic Union, before the known species, before history itself, there was a civilization called the Architects. They were the first beings to travel between galaxies. They built machines that could survive the death of stars, and they created technology that seemed like magic. But their greatest creation was not a weapon, not a ship, not a machine. It was a message, hidden across the universe, waiting for one species. Humanity? The scientists watched in horror because the images revealed something impossible. The architects knew humans would exist. They knew Earth would rise. They knew children would come. And they were afraid not of humanity, but of what humanity would become. A scientist stepped closer. "No," he whispered, "this can't be real." The voice continued. "The universe does not fear the strength of humanity. It fears the weakness that makes them strong." Lena looked confused. She looked at the glowing walls. "What does that mean?" For the first time, the ancient machine answered directly. "Humans feel everything. Pain, loss, love, and because they feel, they choose." The room became silent. Kale stared at Lena. Suddenly, he understood the machines were never searching for powerful humans. They were searching for compassionate ones. The galaxy had spent 1,000,000 years looking for a weapon, but the architects had created something else, a test of the heart. Then the doorway opened completely. Behind it was not a room, not a weapon, not a treasure. It was a map of the entire universe, and at the center, a single red mark, Earth. One council member stepped forward. "Why Earth?" the ancient voice replied. "Because every civilization eventually faces the same choice, power or protection." The walls changed. The children saw visions, planets burning, empires fighting, species destroying each other for control. Then a different vision appeared. A small human child holding the hand of an alien child. 2 different species, 2 different worlds, but the same emotion, hope. Lena touched the music box hanging around her neck, and suddenly the symbol beneath the lid began glowing. Every scientist in the room stepped back because they finally understood. The music box was not a toy. It was a key created by the architects, passed through generations, waiting for the first human child who could awaken it. The High Council panicked. "Take it from her, now!" Soldiers raised their weapons. Kale immediately stepped between them. "No!" The guards aimed at him. The council leader looked furious. "You would betray your own government?" Kale looked at Lena, then at the frightened children behind her. "No," his voice shook. "I would finally stop betraying myself." For the first time, a human child was not alone. Someone chose to protect her. Then the ancient doorway released one final message, a message that changed everything. "Warning, the hunters have awakened." Everyone looked at each other. "What hunters?" The light suddenly turned red. Far beyond the galaxy, something massive moved through the darkness, something that had been sleeping for 1,000,000 years. The ancient voice spoke again. "They are coming for the children." A pause. Then, "They are coming because they know what humanity will become." The laboratory shook. The stars outside the capital began disappearing, one by one, not exploding, not fading, but being covered. Something enormous was moving between galaxies. And on the observation screen, a single message appeared, 3 words, "Return the children." The Galactic Union capital had never known fear. For thousands of years, it had controlled wars, stopped rebellions, and destroyed threats before they could grow. But now every weapon they possessed felt useless, because the thing approaching them was older than their entire civilization. The alarms continued screaming. Ships disappeared from the outer planets, communication networks failed, and across the galaxy, every ancient machine began sending the same message. The hunters have returned. Inside the Vault of Origins, the children were terrified. Some cried, some called for their parents, and some simply held each other's hands in silence. Lena looked at them. She was afraid too. She was only 8 years old. She didn't want to save galaxies, and she didn't want to become a legend. She just wanted to go home. She wanted her mother to hug her. She wanted her brother to stop stealing her toys. She wanted her old bedroom, her old life. But then she looked at the other children, and she realized something. They were all waiting for someone to protect them, just like she was. So Lena stood up. "I don't know why this is happening." Her voice was small, but everyone heard it. "I don't know what those things are." She looked around the room. "But we can't let them hurt anyone else." Kale watched her, and for the first time he understood the ancient prophecy. The galaxy had misunderstood it for 1,000,000 years. They thought humanity would save them because humans were stronger, because humans would build better weapons, because humans would conquer their enemies. But they were wrong. Humanity's greatest power was something the galaxy had forgotten. The ability to care, the ability to protect someone who wasn't their own. Suddenly, the entire vault shook. A massive shadow appeared outside the observation windows, a ship. No, not a ship, a structure. It was larger than planets, older than civilizations. The scientists looked at the readings and their faces turned pale. Impossible. What? The lead scientist couldn't speak. Then he whispered, "That thing was built before the first stars existed." The shadow stopped above the capital, and a message entered every mind in the galaxy, not through technology, but through fear. The architects failed. They created a species that feels too much. Emotion is a flaw. The ancient doorway reacted. A new symbol appeared, the symbol of the Keepers. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, they revealed themselves. A hidden fleet emerged from beyond the galaxy's edge, thousands of ships waiting in darkness. Kale stared in disbelief. The Keepers. The scientist beside him looked confused. "You know them?" Kale shook his head. "No." Then he looked at Lena. "But they know her." A transmission entered the vault. An old voice spoke, filled with sadness. "Lena Carter." Everyone froze. The Keeper continued, "We have waited 1,000,000 years to meet you." Lena stepped closer. "Who are you?" Silence. Then the answer came. "We are the ones who failed. Long ago, the architects created humanity's first protection. But they knew another species would come, a species that believed emotions were weakness." Images appeared. The children watched as an ancient war unfolded, the Hunters, a civilization that removed all emotion from themselves. No love, no fear, no mercy. They became perfect machines, and they conquered galaxy after galaxy. The architects fought them and lost. Before their final defeat, they created one last hope, humanity. Not because humans were perfect, but because they were imperfect, because they could feel, because they could change. The Keeper's voice became softer. The Hunters are returning because they remember the mistake of the architects. They remember the one species that could defeat them. Lena looked at the approaching enemy. "Me," the Keeper answered. "No," a pause. "Not you, humanity." Suddenly the vault doors behind them opened, not the ancient doorway, but the real entrance. The High Council soldiers entered, weapons raised. The council leader stepped forward. "Nobody leaves." Kale looked at him in disbelief. "Are you insane?" The council leader looked toward the approaching enemy, and his expression changed. He wasn't angry anymore, he was afraid. "If the Hunters want the children," his voice trembled, "maybe we should give them what they want." Lena stared at him, and for the first time she understood. The greatest threat wasn't always the enemy outside. Sometimes it was the fear inside. Then the ancient doorway spoke one final time. "Choose carefully. The future of the universe depends on your answer." The room went silent, because everyone knew the next decision would decide whether humanity became the galaxy's salvation or its greatest mistake. The Vault of Origins became silent, not peaceful, not safe, but silent like the moment before a storm. On one side stood the Galactic Union soldiers, their weapons pointed at the children they had kidnapped. On the other waited a force older than history itself, the Hunters, waiting outside for humanity to be surrendered. The council leader looked at Lena. "You don't understand what is happening." His voice was shaking. "You are just a child." Lena lowered her eyes. For a moment she believed him because he was right, she was just a child. She didn't know how to command armies, she didn't know how to control ancient machines, and she didn't know how to save galaxies. But then she remembered something her grandmother once told her. Being brave doesn't mean you aren't afraid. It means someone needs you and you choose to stand anyway. Lena looked back at the other children, then at Kale, then at the soldiers. "You keep saying I'm dangerous." Her voice was quiet. "But you are the ones holding weapons." Nobody moved. The words hit harder than any weapon. Kale slowly stepped forward. "She is right." The council leader stared at him. "You would risk the entire galaxy for one child." Kale looked at the children behind him. "No," a pause. "I would risk the galaxy because we forgot what makes it worth saving." The soldiers lowered their weapons, one, then another, then another. The council leader watched as his own people chose a child over an order, and for the first time he questioned everything. Outside the capital, the Hunters moved closer. Their massive structure blocked the stars. They sent one final message: surrender humanity's children, or your civilization will end. The ancient doorway reacted. The entire vault began glowing. The music box in Lena's hand opened by itself, but this time it played music, a simple melody, a melody her grandmother used to sing. Lena froze because she suddenly remembered something. Her grandmother had never told her it was a song. She had called it a promise. The ancient machines throughout the galaxy awakened. One by one, millions of forgotten structures, millions of years of silence ending. The keepers watched as signals appeared across space. The impossible happened, ancient weapons activated, but they did not aim at the hunters. They aimed at themselves. The galaxy watched in confusion. Then the keeper explained. The architects left humanity one final choice, not a weapon, not an army, a decision. The hunters demanded destruction. The ancient machines offered power, but humanity had to choose. Would they become what the galaxy feared, or would they become what the architects hoped? Lena looked at the ancient controls. She understood the machines weren't asking her to destroy the enemy. They were asking her something much harder. Could she forgive them? Could she choose mercy, even against those who wanted to erase her? The hunters prepared to fire. Every civilization waited. The smallest child in the universe held the fate of everything. Lena placed her hand on the ancient symbol and whispered, "I don't want to hurt them." The scientists stared. "After everything they are going to do," Lena nodded. "Yes, because if we become like them," she looked toward the darkness outside, "then they already won." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the universe changed. The ancient machines did not fire. Instead, they sent a message every living creature could understand, not through language, but through emotion. The hunters received it, and for the first time in millions of years, they felt something they had removed from themselves long ago. Fear. Not fear of death, but fear of being wrong. Their perfect minds showed them memories, every world they had destroyed, every species they had erased, every child who had lost their home. And they finally understood. The weakness they hated was the thing they had lost: compassion. The massive hunter structure stopped. Its weapons powered down. Across the galaxy, billions watched as the impossible happened. The enemy that had conquered civilizations was defeated by a child who refused to hate. The Keeper fleet approached Earth, but they did not invade. They bowed. 1,000,000 years of waiting finally ended. The ancient voice spoke one last time. Humanity was never created to rule the universe. It was created to remind the universe that life matters. Years later, history would tell the story differently. They would talk about battles, ships, ancient technology, and galactic wars. But those who were there remembered something else. They remembered an 8-year-old girl. A girl who stood before the oldest enemy in existence with no weapon, no army, no power, only a heart that refused to become cold. And because of her, the galaxy learned the truth it had forgotten for 1,000,000 years. The strongest beings in the universe were never the ones who could destroy everything. They were the ones